Welcome back, everybody, to my continued trek through the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are now on Volume 4, and I actually have it in my hand. It's so good to actually hold it for once. But yes, for those that don't know, this is a trek through the novel series after watching the first season. I'm kind of going through this series and looking at exactly what is kind of emphasized in the novel series that was kind of left out in the anime adaptation. Not criticizing the anime adaptation, but just more deep diving into the cool little extras that you get by reading this series. And before we get started with the first chapter, we of course have the inclusion in this novel of a map. We have a map finally, something drawn out. Now, it doesn't specify where this map comes from. I am sort of wondering if this is something that's developed based on what we currently know about the world itself, because there is quite a bit that's in this map that's not necessarily labeled. We're mostly seeing things that we do know about so far based on the descriptions that we get from multiple characters. So yes, it is giving us more than what Ruijerd himself knows, so I don't believe that he drew it, but I do believe there is an aspect here that it is sort of drawn based on our knowledge. So because I love to deep dive into a lot of this stuff, let's start looking at this map. Now, as per usual, I don't want any spoilers down in the comments. If I'm pointing out something and it's probably wrong based on my speculation, I don't want to know the true answer to it. I want to discover this stuff as we discover it in the novel. The first geographical thing I want to go over is obviously the initial splitting of the continents themselves. In Volume 2, as Ruijerd was kind of going through the history of the world and the universe itself, he talks about 4,200 years ago, Aldebaran in the fight against the Demon Emperor used a final attack. And this final attack created this big, huge crater in the middle of the central continent because as we kind of get from that history, all of this stuff on this map used to be one single continent, or at least the central continent, the Demon continent, and the Mills continent, I believe was all one single continent. You might argue that the Badigadi continent was separate, but this big, huge ocean in the middle here, this big, huge sea was essentially land that was all kind of a big crater that filled in. And that, of course, became the Ringus Sea. So I'm assuming this big mass of water in the middle here is the Ringus Sea. The next thing that was pointed out in the history lesson is that the elves who made magic were in the Northern Millis. So way down here at Northern Millis, we have somewhere in there is the elves that created magic. The next geographical thing that was pointed out is the Pit of Dragon God, which is at the foot of the Holy Mount Dragon Cry in the Red Mountain range. Now, we don't know exactly based on this map where that's at. My assumptions, is that it's probably going to be east of Fatoa. I know I'm going to probably point in this direction a lot, which is opposite what you're going to see the map, so work with me here. So east of the Fatoa region, maybe down in the Badigadi continent, or maybe in that southern area of the central continent. We, of course, learned about the Buena village. That's where Ruijerd was born. That's, of course, in the Fatoa region. Down south of there is the Asura Kingdom. That is where I'm assuming the Asura Palace is at, and that was where Lilia used to work before she moved up there and started working with Paul and Zenith. This is where we start to get into stuff that I kind of wish was labeled on the map because it's stuff that we technically should know about at this point. Specifically, the Citadel of Roa. The Citadel of Roa is not labeled on the map, but I'm assuming that this little white circle that is just right of the Fatoa region on the map, I'm assuming that is going to be essentially where Roa was at, and additionally, yes, Buena Village would be in somewhere in there as well, maybe just off the side. But again, I'm assuming that Buena Village and the Citadel of Roa, I think they're all in that circle, which again, I'm assuming that circle is the displacement, a crater created by the displacement incident. Next, some funny stuff. Yes, at some point we had Ruijerd was trying to explain where he learned about this sword dancing, which he claimed was in the Badigadi continent, so that's way down there. Next, of course, we have the explanation of where the Aqua Hartia came from, the staff that Ruijerd now carries. That was a gift to him from Edis. It claimed that the wood for the cane came from the branch of a living elder treant in the eastern part of the Great Forest of the Mills continent. So down there, the Mills continent, all the way to the east where the Great Forest is at. The crystal, of course, coming from the northern part of the Badigadi continent from a wayward sea dragon. Now, of course, the crafter itself of the staff was a craftsman and a rod director from the Ch1 Royal Palace Magic Guild, which again, I'm assuming the Ch1 Royal Palace is within the area where the Asura Kingdom is at, you would assume. Now, here's one that I kind of wish that they would actually have labeled on the map, and I don't know why, but we specifically learned that at some point, Roxy goes to train a prince of the Ch1 Kingdom. Now, again, the map doesn't show where it's at, but the prince himself did state at some point when he was talking to Roxy, you're looking to the east, you're looking over to the Asura Kingdom. So that would imply that on that map, maybe where those little palace emblems are on the coast, that would probably be the Ch1 Kingdom. The next geographical note that we have is that at some point, Roxy does confirm that the Bigoret continent is actually full of labyrinth. This is when she was going to figure out where she wanted to go to search for people that were displaced. And she mentioned that obviously the Bigoret continent is going to be very dangerous because it has labyrinths in it. And then the final note that we have geographically is that at some point, yes, during the displacement incident, we did get the extra chapter of Ghislaine, who was trying to travel to try to figure out where Eris and Rudius went. Well, this would of course been in that northern area of the conflict zone. So we do know where the conflict zone is. It is east of the Ashra Kingdom over the mountains. So it's probably going to be that area where you see the crossed swords at. That's probably going to be the conflict zone. And that would of course be where the Markian mercenary country would have been at that was conflicting with the Dikuto Kingdom and the Braz Empire, which obviously got taken out during that whole incident. And before we move on for this map, I do want to note, I guess, to give an idea of exactly our travels so far. Again, we started off in the Buena village, which would have been in the Fatoa region. At some point, he does travel down in order to train Edis, and that's the point in which the displacement incident happens. This would be the point where he went from that little white dot all the way to the east. Now, I'd assume that he lands somewhere pretty close to Rikurisu City because it doesn't take them long before they travel, hit the Midgard village, and then go to Rikurisu. And this is where we did get him kind of deciding how he wanted to get back to the central continent. And this is where we get into the whole explanation that, yes, it would have been a lot quicker if he could have just gone straight west, go to the Divine Continent, travel around there, and go over to the northern end of the central continent and down towards where his homeland was. Again, that's a straight shot, straight across. But unfortunately, like he describes, the Divine Continent is very dangerous, and it's that ridge. And you can kind of see that in the map. He would have to go around that and, yes, have the dangers of the monsters in that area. And then, yes, that northern area, which we see that's north of that conflict zone, would have been a dangerous place to be as well. So the safer route, but unfortunately the longer route, is to go all the way south to that wind port, and that's technically where we're currently at as this chapter opens. He just arrived at that wind port. But yes, his hope is to go from wind port to the Zant port, go all the way to the west side of that Millis continent, take another port over to the tip of the central continent, and then go all the way north back home. So again, like I said, pretty cool to finally get like a visual of the map. I think I spent too much time going, well, here's a continent, here's a continent. He's just gonna go whoop. Nope. Oh, wait, there's the Mills continent. Okay, it's this continent, here's a Mills continent right in the middle of it. No, it's kind of more over here. So, like I said, to get a visual of the map itself, to get an idea of how far they've traveled, it does give you it does make you realize that despite the fact that the map looks so small, it's really huge. Like, we're talking about a lot of space here. Like, even the Ashra Kingdom and the Ch1 Kingdom, you would think that based on this map, they're like in this small little valley, but this is probably a large stretching area. But at any rate, really cool. Let's start off to chapter 1. Let's get this book started. Opening up the first chapter, we find out that Rudius has reached the age of 11 now. He knows that it's been a full year since the displacement. And this makes sense because we just had Rudius celebrate his 10th birthday, or at least Edis threw a party for him. Immediately, we get a description of the wind port itself. He knows that this is the only port city in the Demon Continent. It is a townscape that has rolling hills. You can see most of the city from the entranceway, so it kind of shows it kind of drips down. Most of the buildings are made of mud and stone, and additionally, most of the shops are at the entrance. He kind of questions when was the last time that I actually seen the ocean. He talks about this time when he was younger and used to tend to a school that was on the coastline in Japan, but he still can't help himself but giving that little bit of childish excitement around the boats and everything. There's a little bit of a question about exactly how he sees that the stuff probably propels themselves. He's wondering if they use magics to move them or whatever. If it's going against the wind, do they use magic to push them? He knows that Eris has been doing a lot better with her demon tongue. They've been teaching her for some time now. And of course, it kind of helps because most of the people in this continent speak demon, so he's been kind of pushing her as their conversations go along to speak naturally in demon tongue. That way it'll help her progress a lot quicker. As regards to his training in her in magic, he's pretty much stopped completely. He kind of notes the idea that at this point she probably has forgotten most of the chants. She never got to the point of doing incantation lists, so he's pretty much stopped teaching her magic at this point. Kind of similar to his own training itself, he's sort of holding back his casting because he wants to conserve that mana in case something bad happens. And so he figures, let's get past this whole situation, then we can get back to that stuff. Arriving on the beach line, of course, we have the moment where Edis wants to jump into the water. She starts to strip, and he gets really excited about it, wants to see how she's sort of been developing over time, getting his little pervy attitude taking him over. But of course, Ruijerd shoots everything down by saying, nah, I wouldn't go in the ocean. There's a ton of monsters in there, which, yes, ruins the entire ecchi moment. They go to check out the Adventure Guild, which kind of throws Ruijerd off. He's like, I thought we'd want to cross immediately. He figures, yes, we plan on traveling quickly, but but I want to check to see what they have available there, what kind of quests are available. Which he sort of notes that it's kind of useless because it seems as if the Mills continent itself, the adventure guilds there, give a lot more for your quest that you do. He explained this by going over the currency difference between both the Mills continent and the Demon continent. There's the King's dollar, the General's dollar, the gold coin, the silver coin, and the large copper coin, and the small copper coin. To put it in perspective, he says that you can make 10 times as much from a B rank quest on the Mills continent than the Demon continent. Even still, there might be some time between now and the point that they can actually board a ship, so he figures, you know, they might have some time to do some quests. Though he would keep it to B rank quests because they're a little bit shorter, they're quicker to do, they're less dangerous, whereas an S rank or an A rank might be something that's more time involved. At this point, it's kind of funny because he knows how dumb it is for somebody to go off to S rank. Just based on the fact that whatever rank you're doing, you can do the next step up. But if you were to go up to S rank, there's nothing above that to do additional. So to go up to S rank, you kind of limit yourself. Though he does question this of the Adventure Guild, and they do mention the idea that there are some perks that only S rank people get. He kind of assumes that's maybe some S rank only exclusive quests that you can do, or maybe there's some perks in the guild itself or lodging or something that they get additional. At this point, they go to visit the Adventure Guild. There, he kind of notes the idea that it seems like every Adventure Guild has an attendant that is well endowed, so he thinks it's sort of a commonality they kind of make sure to with each of their guilds, just to be a little bit more welcoming. After he noted at some point, Eris beats the living crap out of some guy that she claims groped her. We get a cool little scene here where it sort of signifies that Ruijerd himself they're doing something good. Like, we're seeing an improvement of the name of the Supert, or at least the Dead End name. As Ruijerd stops Eris, you sort of have a bunch of people start discussing Dead End. They say, oh, it's the bald guy with the ferocious redhead. It's gotta be Dead End. When they're questioning, wait, you mean the Supert? No, not that, the party. I heard that they're brutal, but the guy's not a bad guy. He's got a good heart. And again, this is that seed being planted, that his idea that what Rudius had planned initially is slowly having its effect. Again, the initial plan was that you would have this rumor go around, that somebody would whisper about Dead End and it's doing this thing and it's really good, and that eventually down the line, it would be kind of diluted to the point where all you would hear is superb good person. And so it's sort of having its effect. He's seeing progress. Back here when his identity was revealed in front of Nokopata and everybody's screaming, he sort of gave up hope. But at this point, it seems like he's going, wait, it's actually working. We're actually getting an effect here. Again, we could probably argue it's all because he shaved his head. It's of course where we get the mentions of what everybody nicknames each one of them. Mad Dog Eris, we have the Guard Dog Ruijerd, and even though he's hoping for a really cool name, was it gonna be Butter Dog? The midget over there must be Kennel Master Ruijerd. So it doesn't even get his name right, which he's kind of fine with. He doesn't want to have all these bad rumors around this Kennel Master be actually attached to his own names. Though it's sort of like, sorry Ruijerd, I'm kind of ruining your name, sort of. They claim that he's the nastiest of them all. He's done awful things. They even make note of his unit, saying that it's small and making fun of it. To which he quickly looks at Eris, and Eris is like blushing because she's started to realize they're talking about down there. And he kind of gives this note of like, you know, you're welcome to give a sneak peek. At this point, we run into quite a big roadblock. As they go to the checkpoint to get ready to board, to go to the Mills continent, we kind of find out that there's a little bit of an issue with them bringing Ruijerd with them. For Rudius and Eris, pretty simple. 2 humans, 5 steel iron coins, and we're good to go. But the problem is they question, you know, what race are you, Ruijerd? They say Superb immediately. They're like clear with it, but the guy looks at it, says that he's bald, and he's like, what are you talking about? Either way, he says 200 green ore coins. Now, why this is significantly huge is that I'm guessing the steel iron coin is probably a regular iron coin. 200 green ore coins is equivalent to 2,000 steel iron coins. Now, Rudius does kind of question, you know, why is this so high? The guy's not going to answer. He's like, well, why do you think it's so high? And it seems like, according to him, the cost is high to prevent terrorism. In case somebody claims that he's bringing along a slave or something to go across and letting him loose on the Mills continent. So it's sort of a way of just really dissuading any demons from traveling across. There's still that issue there of that discrimination. And the guy says specifically, you know, if you fake whatever race he is, it's fine. You're going to still pay, but just know that once you pay, they'll check your sub race. So don't act tough and waste your coin. Like if he comes in here and you pay for that and you're superb, you're basically gonna lose all your money. Following this, they decide to have like a little bit of meeting. Obviously, they got to figure out what the hell they're gonna do because it's a lot of money. They go to an inn, they start eating there. He notes the fact that Eris has lost all table manners at this point. Like, she's been away for so long, her table manners suck. Rudius knows that even doing A rank and S rank missions, it's probably gonna take them at least a year to develop that much money, noting that this is basically just a way of keeping his purse from crossing. He knows that, yes, technically leaving Ruijerd behind is an option, but he doesn't want to do that. They could survive on their own, but he claims that they have this unbreakable friendship now that's eternal. So this all leaves them with 3 total options. He loves breaking down options. He does this later on. He actually creates them before he even decides them. They could stay there for a year, build up their money. The problem there is that eventually they could lose their purse and lose all that money, but that is an option. They could enter a labyrinth and go find a magic crystal that would be worth a ton. They could even probably use that as collateral to get him on the ship. Unfortunately, Ruijerd immediately shuts that down. He says, no, I'd rather not do that plan. Rudius assumes that he's maybe claiming this because despite the fact that he can see monsters with a third eye, possibly he can't see traps, and they're just as lethal. But yes, obviously, Edis really badly likes that idea, would love to do that idea. The third option is to look for a smuggler that could smuggle them across the sea. The fourth option that he has is to sell Aqua Hartia, but that's a precious gift of him. The 2 of them would not be happy about that, obviously. Plus, he does believe that this staff he has been putting to good use. And yes, we all know that eventually he will actually think of doing that. Following this meeting, we have our third meeting with the Man God. In his dream state, Rudius runs into the Man God once again, and he's immediately told, go buy a bunch of food and then go into an alleyway. Just search an alleyway. Rudius is kind of noting, this is kind of cliche. You're talking about that whole cliche thing where I go down there, I end up finding some daughter of the Shipwright Guild, I feed her, and she's like thankful, and she's so happy, and then I get a free trip across the sea, right? The Man God's like, nah, I'm not gonna reveal that to you. Let's save that surprise for tomorrow. It's kind of interesting here because it is sort of noting where the flaws can be in Rudius' thinking. He says, yeah, well, you took that second suggestion I had, the whole, taking the quest to find the cat. You sort of did something really weird with it. You did this whole process of, like, blackmailing these people to work for you. I never knew you would. I just figured you would take the cat and return it. Turn those guys into the guards and you'd be happy, and that would solidify your relationship with Ruijerd. Because Ruijerd would have loved it if you took them to the authorities. So this is sort of a point where Rudius is starting to believe that whatever he thinks about what the Man God tells him to do, he might be overthinking it. That he's overcomplicating what exactly the Man God wants him to do. Because the Man God always says, do this. And then Rudius goes, oh, then he probably means all this stuff. And so that's sort of not working his way. But obviously, the Man God's perfectly fine with this. Oh yeah, you did all that crazy stuff with blackmailing them and using their rank and all that kind of stuff. That was more entertaining. I love when you overthink things. But of course, this is also the point where we're starting to have Rudius not really like the idea that he's sort of doing what the Man God wants him to do. He's playing into his hand. And sure enough, when he goes, the next day, chapter 2, the next day when he starts to get all this stuff together, he gets the food together, he starts going to the alleyway, he sort of goes, what am I doing? Like, I'm doing exactly what he's telling me. I'm playing into his hand. Why am I doing this? I wasn't supposed to be trusting this guy. Even still, he does leave Edis and Ruijerd behind. Apparently, they're going to go off to train together. Sort of has Rudius start to wonder, are they doing something else naughty? He's having all these weird ideas of them being on the beach and running behind some rock and doing naughty things. Like, no, Ruijerd would never do that. He believes that if he does realize at some point that Ruijerd's taking Edis from him, he's going to use this big water attack to push him off into the ocean. Like, he's starting to think of some way that he can handle it. It is sort of funny to see how Rudius believes he could possibly take down Ruijerd. Because obviously he knows Ruijerd's like way massively overpowered. So this is technically our second time where he comes up with some plan that he can somehow take out Ruijerd. The first time was in Rikarisu. He said this is big, huge crater. All I have to do is just block off the exits and then just flood it with lava. That's the easiest way to take him out. And additionally, it's the same thing with this situation. How can I fight him? I can't fight him head on, so I'll just gust him with a whole bunch of water, push him out in the ocean, and he'll just drown out there. It's always these like over-the-top ways that are just ways of fighting Ruijerd without like actually fighting him. Just basically overpowering him and hoping that nature takes its course. But yes, despite his issues with doing what the Man God wants, he buys the food, he goes to an alleyway. At some point, he overhears some guy, like, trying to lure a girl. He's saying something about, well, come with me, I have plenty of food, come back to my place. And so, Rudius, from the distance, he shoots some, like, rocks at him and hits him and knocks him out. And coming up there, he comes to find that this young girl is wearing a revealing black leather outfit, knee-high boots, hot pants, tube top, horns, and wavy purple hair. Says he kind of looks like a young succubus. He does note that there is succubi in this world, but they inherit the Begaret continent. He also does note that at some point, Paul told him specifically that the succubi are their greatest enemy of the Grey Rat family. They stand no chance against them. And it specifies that Paul says that with a very tense look on his face, so Obviously, Paul has had a run-in with that, and I would love to hear about that at some point. But yeah, so after saving this girl, she stands up, says, man, Laplace cannot know about this disgrace. Cannot know about this. It's been 100 years since I've been revived. He feeds her the food, and she claims that she has not eaten an entire year. We're already having at this point, Ruijerd is not really believing that this person's telling the truth. Like, this is going to be some little girl that has these great, crazy fantasies about being Kishirika. He notes that she has heterochromia, one eye spins and turns blue before kind of saying that he's disgusting looking. She claims, what is this? I've never seen this before. I believe when we seen this in the anime, I was sort of assuming that she was talking about that she was able to see his inner self, this self that he kind of projects himself whenever he talks to the man god, this one from this past life, the chubby 40-year-old NEET. But she specifically says, could it be that you were a twin in the womb and the other died? Your mana pool is larger than Laplace's. So it kind of insinuates that he was inside of the womb. At least what I'm assuming is what she believes is that when he was born in this world, he was with a twin, and that twin died, so he gained all that mana from that twin. She asked what his name is. He introduced himself as Ruijerd. She introduced herself as Kishirika Kishirishu, the great emperor of the demon world. At this point, apparently, when she said that, she thrusts her thighs forward towards his face, and he immediately instinctively licks them, and she quickly turns them together and rubs them together and says he's disgusting. Anyway, at this point, she claims that, Ruijerd, you saved my life. I'm gonna grant you one wish. To which point, we get this rundown of all these stuff that he's asking for, and she does not provide, obviously. He says, well, I want wealth. She says, obviously, I'm penniless. I'm starving on the side of an alleyway. How am I going to give you money? Well, okay, I want half the world. She's like, wait, why half the world? He's like, well, I don't want all the men. I just want the women. She's like, oh, well, you're a lecherous one, aren't you? But anyways, I have not taken the world yet, so I can't give you half of it. What else? Okay, well, he's at the end of his wits, like, well, then your body. Give me your body. Pay me with your body. At this point, she's like, well, you're so lustful, I really have concerns about your future. But she's like, okay, well, I guess so. And she goes to start stripping, and he was about to say, like, look, I'm just joking. But she just goes at it, and so he's like, well, I'll let her strip, and then I'll tell her, I'm not going to take your body. You're too good for me. You're the great Kishirika. Yeah, she's like, it's my first time since being revived, so be gentle with me. But no, she stops it and she's like, no, I already have a fiance, so I can't do that. So at this point, he's done. Like, well, what can you give me? Like, what are you going to be able to give me? What wish can you grant? At this point, she reveals, I can bestow upon you a demon eye. Now, Ruijerd is not really sure what this means, but he does remember that, obviously, Ghislaine had a demon eye, the one that she had under her patch. He does kind of make a joke like, oh, so is that like one of those eyes that allows you to see a person's lifeline? And if you cut that, it'll absolutely kill them? She's like, it's like, that's horrific. No, I don't have anything like that. That sounds terrifying. I like that this demon's like, a demon is literally like, wait, that's horrible. Like, no matter what all Kishirika has probably done in her past, this is horrible. She's like, what kind of grudge do you have? Do you have a grudge against somebody? I've been killed twice, and I can tell you that having a grudge doesn't help. It just chains you down. Like, we're having this, again, this point in which this demon is literally, like, telling this boy, look, listen up, son. You need to chill out. This is interesting, because this is the point in which we get, like, a full breakdown of different demon eyes. And again, I don't remember this in the anime. If I remember correctly in the anime, she's like, I can bestow a demon eye upon you. And he's like, really? And then she just goes, and here's a demon eye. I don't remember the full explanation, and the novel, of course, does. The novel she describes is the Eye of Magical Power, which allows you to see mana directly. This is the most common one, and 1 out of 10,000 people have this. The next is Eye of Identification. It identifies objects and their details. Now, the stupid thing about this one, and why she pretty much says you don't really want this one, is that it only gives information that she knows, Kishirika. So she bestows this upon him. If she hasn't seen or knows about things, it just shows unknown. So it's like pretty useless. The next is the Eye of X-ray Vision, which of course allows you to see through objects. It doesn't let you see through living creatures or places of high mana. But she does note that this is probably perfect for you since you're so lustful, you'll probably love being able to see people naked. Which he does later note that when he does his little process of elimination, yeah, it would probably be good, but after a while, I'd probably get tired of it. And I like the whole process of people taking off their clothes. Plus, he was technically afraid that he'd have to see Ruijerd naked until he got used to the eye. The next is the Eyes of Distant Sight, which, as it would lead you to believe, it's the ability to see very far away. Again, in the process of elimination here, he kind of realizes it's great to see something far away, but if you can't affect what's happening far away, why does it matter? You might be able to see threats coming your way, obviously, but The idea is that I don't want to see things that I can't help. The next is Eyes of Foresight, which allows you to see things moments in advance. This is kind of difficult to focus, but at the same time, this is something that's just really good for people that like business. Being able to see things in advance is something that any business person would love to have. And the final one is the Eye of Absorption, which allows you to consume mana. This includes your own mana, so she doesn't recommend that either. So, like, I'm guessing Rudius could go use spells and it would just absorb into his own eye. At this point, Rudius is listening to all this and going, man, this girl is making some crazy stuff up, or she's very knowledgeable because she's just laying all this stuff out, and he still believes that this is a kid that's trying to play as Kishirika. He's playing along. So to play into it, he says, well, I want 2 of them. Give me 2 of them. She's like, no, I don't recommend that. He's like, why? What's wrong? She's like, you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. You would have 2 eyes that are doing 2 different things. Most people kind of keep one behind an eye patch, which again plays into what we heard about with Ghislaine. She claims that a person would have to live for hundreds of years to master 2 of them. And a child like yourself would go mad even trying. Again, it's the point where he starts to weigh the positives and the negatives, and eventually he goes, you know what, this doesn't matter anyway. This is all fake anyways. We'll go with Foresight. She's like, wait, you don't want X-ray? You don't want X-ray? You'll be able to see all these women. He's like, no, that's fine. I'll get tired of it anyways. At this point, she jams her finger in his eyes, and he's like, what the hell is this chick doing? I'm like racking in pain, wondering what the hell she's doing. He's trying to pull away, but he's like, this girl's like stronger than I thought. I can't pull away. But after she's finished, she pulls her hands out. That's when he realizes that he's able to see like doubled. Like everything in that eye, he's seeing double vision. At this point, she's like, good luck learning how to use it. Take care. Just learn how to flow your mana in it to help it. It'll work out fine. Later, I gotta go. I gotta go find Badigadi, which, yay. This writer does it every time. Every time they mention something and I'm going, why are you mentioning this? It explains it. For those that don't remember, Badigadi was the one they mentioned in Volume 3 when Rudius was talking about the fact there are demon kings in this world. There's demon kings at different locations, and they have their own little packs of militia that's with them. And Badigadi was the only one that Rudius mentioned by name. He was the one that ruled the area around Karisu. He was the one that was black skin, had multiple arms, and the one that like, kind of ran off on his own little venture. So apparently she's looking for him. So again, cool to see this writer continues to not bring up things for no reason. And that's pretty much where we leave chapter 2, and I'm going to leave it at that. This is probably going to be longer than usual, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my analysis of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation as usual, currently Volume 4. As always, I definitely welcome you guys to go down in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought of this segment. Definitely hit me up. I'd love to get your guys' comments, all of your guys' feedback. The positivity has always been great, as usual. Make sure to hit that like button if you like this video as well. It does help us out. As per usual, please keep spoilers out of the comment section. I'm fine with anything from the first season. I'm fine with anything for the novel series up until this point, nothing beyond it. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. And yes, additionally, Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support us more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Anything you can give is greatly appreciated. With that said, y'all take care.